exciting topic tonight. Know your rights in the age of Trumpism. Just want to go over a few upcoming events and how we do things on our Zoom meetings. We have a lot of links to share, but we're not going to put them in the chat because we want you guys to pay attention to what's going on in the meeting and not going back and forth. But put your questions in the chat. But we'll send out an email to everybody who is here tonight and who registered but did not attend. We have had 60 people register, but obviously they're not all here. And that email is going to have, first of all, a link to join the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. Membership in our organization is free, and these meetings are open to the public. So sometimes we get people who aren't members who come in, like what they see, and want to become a member. There's also a donate link. We are all volunteer staffed, all volunteer funded, and we depend on small donations from people like you to stay in business, so to speak. There'll also be a video of this meeting. We record all these meetings on our YouTube channel, and we actually usually get far more people view the YouTube than actually show up. But if you really like the topic of this meeting and you want to share it, please put it out there. We'd appreciate that. And of course, there'll be links from the Northeast Ohio National Lawyers Guild, who is with us tonight and with this very important topic. Something else that's recently on the horizon but needs to be dealt with soon, and that is a petition drive to initiate a referendum to repeal Senate Bill 1, which is commonly known amongst our circles as the Higher Education Destruction Act. That's the bill that's telling college professors what to teach, stripping them of their union rights, stripping DEI. And so what we've got are links to find a place to sign the petition, links to find the place to get a petition to circulate, and links to volunteer with the campaign. But time is of the essence on this. The Higher Education Destruction Act, SB1, was passed at the end of March, and about 200,000 signatures need to be gathered 90 days after, do the math, the end of June. So, I'll do that. Okay, do it now if you feel that you can. A petition not to sign, if you happen to see it being circulated, is the one the right wing is launching to eliminate property taxes. That, of course, would decimate funding for schools, libraries, social services. And it's so irresponsible that not even the General Assembly thought of this on their own. So don't sign that one. I think you guys probably know that, but just wanted to keep that in your mind. The usual Trump resistance links. And on the menu this weekend is a new event, Freeway Fridays. Those of you that drive down I-90, there's a pedestrian-only bridge that goes over on West 112th Street. Well, our friends from Action Together Lakewood have this resist banner. People are standing on the pedestrian walkway with signs. I went to a couple of those during the first Trump term, and it's a lot of fun, and a lot of people will be honking in support. And of course, the usual protest at the Tesla location in Lyndhurst on Saturday. There's also a sing-along Saturday night. And June 14th is another huge day of nationwide protests. If you don't know this, you're going to be maybe stunned, but not surprised when you hear about this. Trump is having a big military parade in Washington, D.C. to honor Flag Day. And it just happens to be his birthday. And so nationwide, we want as many protests as possible. There are two that have popped up so far in our area. One will be at the Free Stamp, and one will be across the street from Parmatown Mall. That should be an interesting one. But you'll see links to both of those, and you could actually make both because one's 11 to 1, the other one's 2 to 4. Doubleheader No Kings Protest Day. And also in June, a couple things to please keep on your radar. We will be doing our endorsement vote for candidates that have a June filing deadline sometime around the third week in June. And the big ones will be in Cleveland, of course, the city council elections, Cleveland Heights, and Lakewood. So please look for the email and please cast your ballot for our endorsements. All of our endorsements are determined by a vote of our membership. And we would like as many people as possible to vote on these endorsements so we get a good sample of who our membership thinks that we should endorse. And on June 21st, we're going back to visit our friends at the Ohio Inn for sort of a summer solstice social slash fundraiser. And we say social slash fundraiser. If you can make it, but you can't contribute at this time, that's fine. We'd love to see you anyways. So without further ado, let me introduce our main speaker, Joshua Katz from the Northeast Ohio National Lawyers Guild. Let's give Joshua a round of applause.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm Joshua. I'm going to go ahead and begin sharing my screen so we can begin our presentation tonight. Okay, here we go. So I wanted to just begin today by giving you a little bit of information about myself. My name is Joshua, he, his. I am a formal high school English and language arts teacher. I have become a legal observer and law student. I'm currently the Northeast Ohio National Lawyers Guild representative. This is the first year that I held that position. I was elected in January. It's obviously been a very interesting time to step into this role, but I feel like we're doing some really amazing work here. I would also love right now if y'all would just take a minute and then in the chat, I would love to get your name, any pronouns you prefer, and then either what are you hoping to learn tonight or what is the reason you're here tonight? Give me one of these answers in the chat and we'll just take a minute for this. Thank you, Justin. Oh, I scared someone away already.
I think so.
Yeah, so at the end of our presentation today, I do have a call to action. Anyone who's interested, I'm going to talk about the process of becoming a legal observer and what that is a little bit. And we would love to have more legal observers. We need them now more than ever in Northeast Ohio. I hope to learn if there's any way to enforce our rights. Absolutely there is. Thank you, Suzanne. I'm seeing some really amazing answers. Thank you all. Keep them coming. I'll go ahead and start the presentation. And then I'm going to go back through at the end and see if there's anything that we can I appreciate I'm very happy to be here tonight. So a couple of things just to keep in mind as we're going. Oop. I do have to say that this is not legal advice. I am not an attorney. I'm a law student. That's the housekeeping we always bring whenever we do a presentation like this. I'm going to give some general information that very much informs the work that we do. And we have something we call the Dick Wolf rule. Basically, whatever you say can and will be used you against a court of law. If nothing else, remember that. That's always a good beginning to this kind of work. So from all of the Law and Order shows, the CSI shows, it's true. Anything you say in any moment from an encounter with a law enforcement official can lead to being used against you in a court of law. If you're not legally required to say or do something, don't do it. I personally prefer don't take any pictures, don't record unless really necessary. I also just want us to keep in mind, as everyone here knows, these laws are changing really quickly, and this is a broad training. So we're doing our best to keep up, but use your own gut instincts and the information you get here tonight to make sure that you are keeping yourself and the people that you are with as safe as possible. Also, consider your positionality, or in other words, what are the things that I'm bringing to this potential protest or that make me more likely to be arrested or less likely to be arrested? If you're someone who is less likely to be targeted and arrested, then use your positionality to protect and step up for other people. That's something we always ask to consider in this kind of work. Okay. Now, just our general index, we're going to start with a little bit of information about the National Lawyers Guild. We're going to talk about KYR, or Know Your Rights and Risks. I'm going to bring some upcoming potential policies that we're concerned about to your attention, and then we have a call for action and some resources and general Q&As. So if you have any questions, please hold them until the end. However, if they're relevant to the exact thing that we're talking about, I would be totally okay with you dropping them in the chat and saying, I think this would be a good place for this. Okay. So NLG, National Lawyers Guild, is established in 1937. We are the oldest and by far um, the most progressive bar association in the country by a huge measure. We have been around. Basically, this was founded by progressive lawyers and jurists who thought they had a major role to serve in creating the idea that human rights are more important than property rights. Human beings are more important than property. This coming together of public interest and human rights activists working within the legal system has had a really long and pretty storied career in the 20th century until the present. The National Lawyers Guild actually played a role in the Spanish Civil War. There was a huge push during McCarthyism. The National Lawyers Guild took a very prominent role in defending people that were accused of having communist sympathies. The Lavender and Red Scare during the same period, a lot of the same things. And then during the Civil Rights era, the National Lawyers Guild really took a significant and forward-facing view in defending the activists who were engaged in the Freedom Summer, the students in SNCC, the Black and the White Panthers. There was a lot of Vietnam and anti-war demonstrators who were represented pro bono by the National Lawyers Guild. And at the same time, in this kind of convergence of history, there were also a lot of unions, and specifically immigrants and farmers unions, that were coming together that were represented by the National Lawyers Guild. More recently, I think that we're kind of recognized now both for our green hats and for the work in the last decade or so, specifically in the work for Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, and the Free Palestine movement as a whole. We're what's called movement lawyers. That means we're not necessarily real estate lawyers. We're not family lawyers. We're not general lawyers. We kind of do everything that needs to be done. And our beliefs filter really neatly into the idea people are more important than property. The law is fundamentally flawed. It's a human construction, so it is going to reflect human biases and priorities. And we believe that there is a space for both inside and outside advocacy, but we prefer to work with protecting those that are performing outside advocacy. We try different approaches. We look at side-by-side solidarity, not top-down or hierarchical. We're very solution-oriented, looking for creative solutions. And our big thing is we defend the people who are doing the movement work, like y'all, so that that change can occur. So we are here in a supportive role a lot of the time. The way that our infrastructure really works is you have the National Lawyers Guild, which is actually technically the International Lawyers Guild because we have organizations in multiple countries as well. Under that National Lawyers Guild, there are 50 state chapters. Under each state chapter, there are local regional chapters. Like I said, my position is I'm the representative for Northeast Ohio. That means that our territory is really Sandusky to Erie to Akron and Canton and everything in between. Sorry? Oh, okay. Uh, Inside of that local, that regional, we have the collectives, we have our legal observer programs, and then we have student chapters. In Ohio, for example, that we have 7 different student chapters that are working in tandem with our regional chapters and then our state chapters. Our main focus as an organization is mass defense. That's the biggest thing that we focus on. Mass defense includes legal observing. It's our hotline services where we run both support and arrest hotlines after actions. We do jail support for people that are arrested. We do community education like this, doing know your rights trainings. And then we do referrals. We put together like-minded attorneys, jurists, and people involved in the policy and legal world as a whole who are willing to work pro or low bono, and then refer them to people who need their services that we've come across in our work. So, the reason for the season, Know Your Rights training. So, one of the big things here is that there's a dynamic between know your rights and know your risk. And the difference really here that we want everyone to be aware of going into this is that risk is what comes before your rights. The risk is what actually would lead to your arrest, while your rights are what you use to defend yourself in court. So there are 3 things that are going to pertain to nearly all potentially dangerous interactions you might have. The first thing is understanding the difference between these 2 things, the rights and the risk. Rights are obviously things like laws, statutes, any kind of legal protections that you can use to actually defend your right for an action. But the risks are the more practical, real life consequences that are going to be determined by your positionality, your power, the people that you're with, the action that you're taking, and I'll say the way that the state sees you as a danger or not, the way that the state interprets you as an enemy to their purpose or something that they're comfortable with or understand fundamentally. And that's something that unfortunately we actually have very little power about. It is very nuanced. So all of this comes to making the best choices for you, no matter what they're going to be. Um, a lot of things that we're hearing right now, and we're trying to keep up as well, is, well, there are people acting in ways, different types of law enforcement that are acting in ways that's illegal, like catch and release programs. But you have to understand that we actually have a system where law enforcement agents are not only allowed, but often encouraged to lie, ostensibly to lessen the danger for themselves in a situation and prevent a suspect from fleeing. But because of the many legal protections available, and these legal protections are very asymmetrical, that means that oftentimes both both innocent citizens and people that are expressing their rights to assemble and protest are treated as hostile before there's any indication that that's what's necessary. Okay, so now we'll actually talk about your rights and your risks in specific situations. So this is your very general law enforcement interaction flowchart, right? What happens first is that you're going to have that interaction. It can be a traffic stop, it can be somewhere on the street, it can be even at your house or a public place. No matter what it is, that first interaction is going to begin neutrally. If there is a warrant, that changes everything. A warrant is required. If a warrant is required, if it's valid, and then if it is a valid warrant, that's going to change the way that we react to all of this. No matter what, warrant or not, the Third stage is going to be detainment. This is the last chance to end any interaction before arrest. There may be a search occurring at this stage or not. And then the final thing that we're going to see here in this first interaction is going to be arrest. Now, this next slide, we're just going to be very quick with it because it is it's a long and complicated process. After your arrest, there are legal steps and choices to make. From arrest, you have booking, you're in the jail, you have a holding cell, whether or not you have a warrant. Then there's all of the trial aspects to this. We handle a lot of this in the National Lawyers Guild, but really at this point, you will be working with an attorney and working in a system that will help stabilize your experience and give you the support that you need. Okay, one thing, when you're facing an arrest, no matter what, we say, salute. Ask, this is for you, or if you are trying to take care of someone else, we ask that you think salute. Always take these mental or even physical notes if you can. Salute is the acronym to remind you that you want to think size. How many agents or officers were there? Activity. What specifically was being done? Was this at a dealership? Was this in the street? Was this in a public park? Location, give an exact address or as close as possible. Unit, what letters, details, or patches are visible on the uniforms, jackets, and vests? One of the things that's been happening over the last couple of years is many law enforcement divisions are actually getting a special piece of elastic to cover up badge numbers and names. It's something we've seen a lot of. It is very concerning. So a lot of times the information we'll have to work with will be less direct. It'll be a specific patch, or it'll be a specific unit number, or the license plate of a specific vehicle. T for time, what precise time did you witness, or what precise time is this happening to you? And then equipment. What did the agents have with them? Did they have weapons? Were there dogs? Were there flexicuffs? Were they unarmed? Uh, if you are observing this happen to someone else, if you are taking the notes here, we ask that you collect their info. After you get all of that salute information down, make sure that you have the name and date of birth, address, any loved ones, and then any emergency information or urgent needs. For example, if they have children, if they have pets that need medication, if they take care of any elderly relatives. We're going to try using our hotline and using our jail support to contact the loved ones as soon as possible. We begin working as soon as this interaction with the police begins taking place. Okay. So now let's get into specific situations here. What about a traffic stop? You're in your car, you're pulled over by the police. The police are required to have a reasonable suspicion. That means it has to be detailed and articulated. It can't just be, I thought something strange was going on, or it's late at night. It has to be an actual specific reason why you were pulled over. Make sure that you are being pulled over by an actual police vehicle that's inside of your jurisdiction. Make sure you're pulled over into a safe place. You're not in the middle of the road. Legally, police have to move from a reasonable suspicion to a probable cause to escalate from a general traffic stop to any kind of search. However, if something is what's called plain view, meaning it's visible on top of something, if your glove box is open, if it's in the back seat, if your trunk is open and it's visible, if it's in plain view, a search warrant or an escalation is not required. The only exception of this is if the police suspect weapons, and they're allowed to overrule the plain view doctrine and search inside of a glove box or a closed container. Our best practices for this risk mitigation is pull over safely, turn off your car, wait to get all of your things out of a glove box. Answer questions directly. Do not lie. That's very important. And then only roll your windows down low enough to pass documents. Do not roll all your windows down. Do not roll the driver's window all the way down. Again, we err on the side of only give the information that's needed. In the state of Ohio, you must pull over if you are pulled over by a law enforcement officer. You have to provide your driver's license, your registration, and your Ohio insurance. If you are not the driver, you do not have to provide ID, even if you are asked directly. This is going to be true for many things. In Ohio law, you only have to provide your identification and show it if you are driving a vehicle. Remain silent. If you're asked why you were pulled over, think, do you actually know for sure? Don't give any more information that could be used to incriminate yourself. If you say, oh, I was doing 5 over the speed limit, you're really just making this easier for this to potentially be weaponized against you. You have the right to record. Ohio is what's called a one-party consent state. That means that you, by recording, are giving consent for the recording. So you are allowed to record in Ohio. You have the right to remain in your car unless you are being detained and arrested. And you have a right to decline a search unless there is a suspicion of weapons that has been cataloged. So that's our traffic stop. This is a more detailed overview. The police in a traffic stop are only allowed to detain you if they believe that you have committed a crime and you're going to be arrested. So since a lot of this information we're talking about in specific circumstances, I included this as just a great resource. I linked to it at the end. This is from the State Bar Association, but we're going to move on to another specific circumstance. Say that you are walking and that you are stopped. As of right now, in our system, there is no, sorry, I'm working with a couple of monitors here. In our current system, there is no standard of suspicion required if you are stopped while you are walking. However, you can ask the question at any point, am I being detained or am I free to go? And if the answer to am I being detained is no, if the answer is am I free to go, yes, you can walk away calmly. You can be detained for as long as reasonably necessary if there is suspected criminal activity. But we say, ask, am I free to go now, or am I being detained at reasonable intervals? Police have been known and will coerce or lie to try to get a person to self-incriminate. Always say, I'm choosing to be silent. You have to also say it too. You can't just be silent. Police are only allowed to do a brief pat down. They can't get inside of any pockets. They can't reach inside of a jacket or a vest at this level of threat. However, when you are officially placed under arrest, they are allowed to search you. In addition to saying, I am choosing to be silent, you also need to say, I do not consent to a search. And then you need to clearly demand your lawyer if it is escalating to arrest. The earlier that you demand access to your lawyer, the earlier that that's a possibility to intervene and stop this arrest from happening. Once you say these things, I'm choosing to be silent, I do not consent to a search, you are then being arrested, you've demanded your lawyer, at that point, say nothing else because oftentimes there will be recorders in police vehicles and anything that's overheard can be used against you at that point. So if you are walking and you are stopped, repeat, am I being detained? Am I free to go? If the answer, if you are free to go is yes, leave. You're done. Just walk away calmly. Other than that, as this process escalates, say, I'm choosing to be silent. I do not consent to a search, and then demand a lawyer if you are arrested. One of the things that we talk a lot about is digital security. So I'm going to read this list and then I want us just to think for a moment how many of these things we've even heard of. These are all of the digital tools right now that are being used to identify people who go to protests or who post on social media or who are friends with a lot of like activists in their community, or who like share a funny meme with their friends in like a messenger group. There are flock cameras, geolocation and timestamping, crowdsourcing, AI identification, license plate readers, pole and closed circuit CCTV, helicopters and drones, plainclothes and undercover low profile officers, intelligence databases, facial recognition software, social media AI monitoring, stingrays, geofencing warrants, Bluetooth tracking, predictive police algorithms, community informants, SOC accounting on social media, private and public tech surveillance partnerships, federal agencies, gait and posture analysis, voice recognition, metadata trailing, and email and phone records. All of these are being used together to track citizens and see what their habits are, where they go, who they talked with. This is why we say the most important thing is learning what is taking a look at your digital hygiene, as we call it, and saying, what am I doing right now that can keep me and the people that I know safe? So, a quick story. Has anyone heard of Celebrite? Yes. So, I see a few people are familiar with Celebrite. People often believe that their data on their phones are safe because they have their phone locked with a password. And I will say, we absolutely do encourage you should have a 6-digit or more numeric passcode. Do not use biometrics because it is considered legal if an officer holds up your phone to your face, that's considered you voluntarily unlocking it. We do say use a 6 or more digit numeric passcode. But Celebrite is a company. It's an Israeli AI firm that basically uses a device to break into a locked phone. It is capable of doing this with most phones, especially the most common phones around the world. Celebrite was recently forced in a international court ruling to stop selling their technology to Serbia because despite saying that they didn't know that it could be used to do this, it was being used specifically to target Serbian journalists and politicians who were part of a progressive politics. It can dump all of the information on your phone and then make a case against you just using that information. In terms of what you should use to communicate, we recommend using Signal. We used to say WhatsApp was a good choice as well, but WhatsApp now is owned by Meta and does not have end-to-end encryption. So WhatsApp is no longer a good choice. We recommend Signal. Signal is great. It's open source. It collects very minimal metadata, and then it's full end-to-end encryption. Like I said, please password protect your phone and Signal. You can password protect individual apps. Have your password be at least 6 numeric digits, and don't use biometrics. There's no such thing as deleting something, even as a joke, after the fact. Nothing, once something exists in the world, it's out there. We also, in terms of recording, we have a lot of mixed feelings about that, and this is based on our experience. You have the right to record police in public on any public property. You can't record through windows into private property. You can't record through any space you can't record if you are on private property unless you have explicit permission to be there. So any public space, you have the right to record and make sure that everyone's rights are being protected. Your First Amendment rights are protected as long as it's, quote, not interfering with official law enforcement duties. So again, keep in mind that right versus risk. The burden of proof is often on the public, but courts usually side with the public when it comes to this documentation, as long as you recorded in a public space, recorded not through private property or into a window. And then we also say other things. Don't record each other when you're out together organizing, when you're working on an event together. You can have limited recording to kind of get people amped up, but in general, there's a lot of things like metadata and timestamps, geolocation, uh, where this could end up being used against you. One more, just a reminder again, Ohio is a one-party consent state, so you also are okay to record audio. And then when it comes to your online presence, email servers are not secure with a few very specific exceptions. Wi-Fi networks are not secure unless they have full lockdown. We tell students and anyone who uses public space like that, that anything that happens in a locker, in a dorm room, on a public building, in a government building, that is considered public property and can be used in discovery. So this is a QR code right here. This is kind of just a good idea, and I will also be happy to post this slideshow and share this with y'all. The Electronic Frontier Foundation is a great resource if you want to give yourself a digital hygiene checkup and say, hey, how am I doing with this? How am I doing with making sure that I'm protecting myself and others as I'm like doing this important work? Please go to that QR code and then check out some of their recommendations. Okay. Now, let's say specific to a protest, what should you plan for? What should you expect before going into a protest? The things that you should bring. Bring a valid, unexpired government ID. Bring money in cash. Bring any extra clothing, first aid products or prescriptions, especially prescriptions that you take on a regular basis. Bring a small amount of food and hydration. Do not bring your whole purse or wallet. Don't bring anything precious or private that can be confiscated. Don't wear loose clothing if possible. Masks, we have an asterisk next to them. I'll tell you why specifically masks are kind of being treated and increasingly becoming a problem in our world. And then obviously don't bring anything illegal with you. Don't bring anything that could be perceived as a weapon. If you want to like bring cheese and crackers to a picnic, don't bring a knife. Make a plan ahead of time. Think emergency, think small over big. What am I going to need in the next 4 days? And what one person should I have a standing plan with in case something goes wrong? One option available to people is to make an arrest plan to actually write out, hey, this is what I need to happen if I am arrested at this. But that can be used as evidence that you were planning to engage in illegal behavior ahead of time, even if that's not the case. So we recommend have one or two close friends or family members that you say, hey, I'm going to this protest, and if anything happens, I want you to do this thing. Contact the National Lawyers Guild, tell them I need to get this medication, tell them I need my pet taken care of. Make sure before you go, you turn off biometrics on your phone. You have your arrest plan all taken care of. If possible, write emergency phone numbers actually on your arm or somewhere where it's not going to run. And then we have for specific groups with that idea of positionality, we have some more detailed breakdowns if you follow this QR code. And I know we're doing a presentation now, so I will include that again in the overall slideshow. Okay, so masks. I want to talk about this for a second. A lot of people wear masks when they protest. Unfortunately, we've seen over the last few years that the security state as a whole has been very effective at spinning a narrative that wearing a mask to protest means you intend to cause damage and that you intend to be dangerous. That is not true. However, many states are creating very severe crackdown laws about specifically protesting or being in a public assembly while wearing a face mask of any kind. Because of that, that's a personal choice. In Ohio specifically, I will say if you want to wear a mask, do not wear a white mask because there is a very old anti-Ku Klux Klan law on the book that the Ohio Attorney General has said he will use that specifically states that wearing a white face covering while engaged in, group activities is can be a form of basically social terrorism. So if you are going to wear a mask while protesting, we ask wear a dark colored mask, do not wear a white mask. Okay. So at a protest, there's going to be a few different options in terms of what can happen. So let's say the police are targeting specific individuals. Usually, these are going to be organizers or people known to the police. They'll be individuals that are ID'd. If that happens, we're going to ask for you, as the people that are there, to go ahead and document what's happening. Make sure that the people that are being arrested have all of their information in order. Let's say they're not going after individuals, but they're doing what we call a slow-mo arrest. This starts with a dispersal order. You might see the police with zip ties. There might be officers on bikes, and you might see some buses or vans pulling up. If that's the case, under the slow-mo arrest modality, we say go ahead and disperse. Take care of yourself and other. The third option, which is what people really think about when they have that image of an arrest, protest turning violent and arrest, is where there's pepper spray employed, there's tear gas, there is property damage. I have never seen this actually happen without, and I'm going to be very serious here, without police escalating. I have never seen a chaotic arrest take place. It has only been a couple of times, and it has been specifically with police escalating. There will be a very quiet dispersal order or no dispersal order at all. And then immediately there's going to be pushing, there's going to be handcuffing, there's going to be using pepper spray, tear gas, releasing dogs if dogs are there. Because of that, if the chaotic arrest, if you think that's what's happening, please take care of yourself. Make sure you follow the plan you have in advance. Practice what to say and stay calm. Think of the people around you, and then use anything you have to get away and take care of yourselves. Okay. At the protest, if things are escalating, once again, you are always free to ask, am I being detained or am I free to go? If you're free to go, go. The only thing you need to say is your name, your address, and your date of birth if you are not being arrested. Again, you don't have to show ID in Ohio unless you are driving a vehicle. Do not lie no matter what. Make sure to say, I don't consent to the search. Say, I am not resisting. Even if you are clearly not resisting, make sure you say it because it needs to be ideally recorded in case there is an unfortunate and deadly escalation. Invoke your right to silence and to speak to an attorney as soon as possible if you believe that you're being arrested. If you or anyone else is injured, demand immediate medical attention. And then usually, again, even as you're being arrested, you may be allowed one phone call within a reasonable period of time before you're actually arrested and processed. Okay. So now I know that was a lot of information to take in. I want us to just take a deep breath, and then we're going to quickly talk about some policies coming up that are changing, that might be changing our legislative norms, that might be changing the way that we actually have to respond to things. Right now, there are a few bills in the legislature that we want to make sure are being given appropriate attention here in Ohio. In general, there have been national trends in anti-protest laws over the last 15 years. Many civil rights groups like the ACLU and NAACP have fought against these and argue that the increasing prevalence of these laws are chilling free speech. They're disproportionately targeting racial and economic justice and environmental activism. But opponents are using terms like riot, unlawful assembly, and property damage, even when it's not technically correct, in creating these overly broad categories that are risking arrest for peaceful protesters. There are increasing penalties, there's criminalizing of blocking any public infrastructure, and there's a move to expand legal immunity for people like drivers who hit protesters or who counter protesters who shoot protesters. Ohio has taken up this specifically. In 2021, there was a Critical Infrastructure Protection Act. It was at the time HB 109 that was signed by Mike DeWine. And it makes trespassing on anything considered critical infrastructure, like pipelines or utilities, a felony instead of a misdemeanor. Be careful about this. There are harsher penalties now because this is an automatic felony conviction. This legislation and a lot of the legislation we're seeing is being pushed by groups like ALEC. The one that's the Ohio anti-masking law that I brought up before, the one about wearing a white mask, it is illegal to assemble or appear in a public place wearing a mask or other disguise with intent to commit a crime, intimidate others, or anonymously threaten violence. This was actually passed at the Ku Klux Klan in the 50s, but Dave Yost, the Ohio Attorney General, has said that it will be used for anti-fascist activists wearing masks for anonymity, and he started threatening this in 2017. We're watching right now House Bill 109, which is also Senate Bill 53. It degrades the ability of Ohioans to peacefully protest by creating higher fines and prison time for individuals where showing up and being a part of any protest where subjectively calling it a riot, meaning 5 or more people gathered in a place, can lead to not just criminal charges but also full civil liability. Put this another way, very simply, we are very concerned about this. A lot of groups in Ohio that are doing good work are very concerned about this. This is intended to make it so that people are afraid to protest and stand up against the creep of authoritarianism by saying, not only will you potentially be charged if anyone at a protest engages in criminally destructive behavior, but also you or an organization, you as an individual or you as an organization, as for example, CCPC, could be charged with civil liability if anything happens. We're watching this very closely. Right now, both of these bills are in their respective committees in the House and the Senate, but we are very concerned about them and we want everyone to be aware of them moving forward. Okay, here is our call to action. I talked about a lot about the National Lawyers Guild. I talked a lot about all of these threats that we are facing. And we would love to have you all come and be legal observers. What legal observers do is they go to protests, they go to events, they go to public spaces, and basically make sure that protesters' rights are protected. We work under an attorney and then take detailed notes which are used in testimony in legal cases. We have been asked to testify a number of times. We have been very successful actually in exonerating some protesters and organizations that had claims falsely filed against them. For becoming a legal observer, we have a couple of trainings coming up. We have a training on the 31st of this month. We have one at the end of next month. If anyone's interested, I highly recommend it. And I have some testimonies from a couple of our current legal observers I'll share. But take a screenshot of this, and tomorrow you're going to have this link sent to you, linktree-neo.nlg. We would love to have y'all sign up to Legal Observe. We think you, as a group, with what you all believe in, would make excellent legal observers. And the only skills you really need are the skills to be able to take good notes. We also have lots of different ways to be a legal observer. It's not necessarily being out in the field with that high risk of danger. We also have a lot of behind the scenes work. I mentioned our arrest hotline. We need support in making sure that our teams in the field are safe while working remotely. We have a organizing support for people in jail and who are arrested. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved. What some of our what some of our legal observers said when I asked them about this before today, one of our legal observers said, I felt a call towards legal observing when I saw student protesters be silenced in spring 2024. I like protecting others' rights to free speech and the legitimacy that a team of legal observers brings with them to any event. Legal observing has connected me with like-minded individuals, and this gives me a sense that I'm doing the right thing. We also heard from another legal observer. Legal observing is an important intervention to help protect our human rights in our local community. The program is very inclusive of disabilities, and I'm able to volunteer in lots of supportive ways when I'm not able to be physically present. I've learned about local issues, and I've made good connections with fellow legal observers. So please, I'll go back. We would love if y'all are interested, sign up. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them in just a moment here. Okay, here is a short list of resources if you want to go a little deeper on anything that I talked about here today. I know it was a lot of information to take in, but it's a very, very dense topic. I put together some guides for you here. The NLG has a lot of different Know Your Rights guides. This is a great way to get to the main site and say, okay, which one really applies to me? The Immigrant Defense Project has some really wonderful tips for people who are supporting immigrant communities in this time. Below that, we have the red cards. A red card is something that you can print out at any time or keep a digital copy of, and it walks you through the steps of what to say if you are encountering an ICE agent, if you're encountering a general law enforcement agent, or anything to help for yourself or anyone else. The ACLU of Ohio also has a great Know Your Rights program. I will say they got their Know Your Rights program from us. We kind of work together on this. But this is a great resource as well here. And then the Ohio Bar actually has a very Ohio specific set of rights when interacting with police. And I think that if you ever have any questions, go straight to that source. We also have, in addition to these links, which will be sent out to y'all tomorrow, a couple more QR codes. I love a QR code. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. On the left, we have the Catalyst Project. This is where we've gotten a lot of our information about where we work with them in a lot of how do we support protesters in this time, specifically doing protesters who are doing like very powerful and very dangerous work. So we recommend following the Catalyst Project, learning more about what they do, and learning more about techniques for how the change we make in the world can be radical. And then on the right, we have our own Ohio NLG, a Northeast Ohio National Lawyers Guild link. This is going to be a lot of different resources for you. It's going to be a way to sign up for our Legal Observer training, as well as a lot of different guides that can help with any questions you might have about this or any information you want to know to share around. Also, follow us on social media at on Instagram at NEOHIO_NLG. And then finally, just Q&A. Any questions that you might have.
Josh, there was one in the chat asking if you only get one phone call, what happens if somebody doesn't answer?
That's a wonderful question. With that, I would say plan when you are making your plan. And again, remember, make a plan before anything you do. Plan with a close family member or friend who is consistent, who you're not necessarily going to be out in the field with. If you are unable to reach that person, or even if you're worried that that person might not be able to pick up for some reason, they're at work or they're dealing with a family situation, I would make that call to the National Lawyers Guild Arrest Hotline. That's a number that's popularized in a lot of places. and that line is staffed. We accept messages and requests 24 hours a day. We don't always have a person physically there. But if you think you are getting arrested and you're worried that you won't be able to contact someone, contact the Ohio National Lawyers Guild. We'll take care of you. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Randy?
Wait, he's got to unmute.
I just wondered, I've heard a lot of people mention that they are starting to use burner phones. What's your attitude towards that?
So I think that the inclination to use burner phones is good, understanding that like the phones that we use for everything can be a security liability. However, the reality is, like we were talking about, because there are so many ways to crack a phone at this point, I honestly I don't think it's a worthwhile investment to get a burner phone just to use for like organizing and community activism. I would instead just tighten up your digital hygiene, your digital footprint on the device that you're using. Make sure that you're using secure messaging and video apps like Signal. And then make sure that you have a strong 6-digit passcode or more that's numeric. And also make sure you turn off biometrics before you go out anywhere, or anywhere where there's a risk of police interaction. I will say, I think that the burner phone idea is an idea that was very effective about a decade ago. And I think that a lot of people are still like, because that idea didn't necessarily like disseminate back then, it's still seen as a really good idea. But none of us really think about how advanced the security technology has gotten. That list of the different security technologies that are used together to track people's movements is pretty powerful. Let's see.
Do you see that question? I have a password longer than 6 digits that mixes letters and numbers. Should it just be numbers?
I don't think that's a problem. I will say that this could be my own ignorance, but I didn't think that you could use the alphanumeric keypad on a port, like a phone or a portable device. For your regular passwords, that's fine. Actually, I mean, if y'all want just like a tip is for computer passwords, this sounds crazy, but 4 or 5 random words together that don't have a meaning is actually considered harder to hack than random numbers and symbols. Random numbers, letters, and symbols. So like, I'm making this up on the spot. Don't use this because I'm going to know this one. But if you were like palm tree orangutan 22 magnificent, that would be a stronger password in terms of the ability of AI to guess things than putting together. Oh, see, we have the same password. Yeah. Yeah, but for something like a computer, you want like I would say 4 to 5 random words. You can throw a number in the middle or throw it in the middle, not at the beginning or not at the end. For your phone, if you can use letters, that's great, but otherwise just make sure it's 6 digits or longer. I think that's the important thing.
Go ahead, Steve.
Does anybody else have a question? I actually have two.
Okay.
But if somebody else has one first, go ahead.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. So the digital security, that's a little scary. Okay. Your presentation, that section of it. Do you think a group like us, and we have emails, X, Facebook, and we're not shy about our disdain of the Trump administration.
Yeah.
And there's no point in taking that stuff. Not that we would anyways, but do you think they're going to start monitoring organizations like ours?
To give you an honest answer, and this is a scary answer, they already are. I don't think that they're monitoring it in the same way that, let's say, I think that there's very much a tiered level of concern but hopefully that won't be anything in the future. But that data is has already been scraped, realistically. That's just the world that we live in. I would say you don't need you don't need to stop having accounts on those things and communicating in that way, because one, that is a really good and effective way to get people involved and get people interested. And at this point, you're not in danger of having a crackdown, y'all, for the work that you're doing right now. However, be aware that, like, should conditions change, I would say work on keeping like some things, like keeping like the details of what you're doing in these more private chats, and then be general in terms of like, we're here for people who are looking for a way to get organized. We're here for people who want to get engaged in like stopping the like Trump agenda and like resisting. I think that's fine to be public facing with right now, but just be careful about posting things that in, let's say, a dark timeline, like near future, could be used to basically put a case against you. Does that make sense? Is that, yeah.
And when you're talking about that, we never advocate violence or anything like
No,
that.
but that's, and listen, absolutely, neither do we. Like I said, we're hoping that this is not, that we're not going to see an escalation of things, but like, you know, again, scary talk. We're now hearing national conversations about suspending habeas corpus, which is pretty unthinkable as a concept until 3 weeks ago.
Right, right.
So.
Well, just a note to our membership, we're not going to be start getting shy about our criticism of Trump and promoting.
And you absolutely shouldn't. I do want to be clear. You should not do that. As
And-
long just understand, remember we talked about know your rights, know your risks. This is a risk. It's a lower intensity risk at this point. Just keep an eye on it and just take care of each other like you're doing.
Okay, and I have your number, Joshua, just in case.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So the other question is the slideshow. The stuff you sent me this afternoon, is that in it? And if not,
Yes.
can you get me the link to it?
Yes, I will. So I'll actually email you this slideshow. I think that'll be easier to just email you the link to the slideshow at this point. And then you could we'll include that as a hyperlink. I do see that there's another question in here. Considering the risk of a mask being used against you if you do end up arrested, do you think there's any benefit to wearing one anymore? I mean, to be honest, that's the thing. That's why I said we kind of have like a mixed feeling about it. Without giving any details, I have specifically been doing a series of events that are planned by some overlapping organizers where myself and the other legal observers are wearing masks. And part of that is because this group does live stream everything they do, and we don't want our faces to be live streamed while we're doing the legal observing work. There are also, I think that in general, it's a calculus, but I think that the benefit to wearing a mask still outweighs not wearing a mask in Ohio, as long as it's not a white or a light colored mask. When Ohio, compared to other states, Ohio has not specifically cracked down on all mask wearing yet. I mean, I think New York is actually one of the leading states in this, which is a little bizarre, but Ohio has not threatened to criminalize all mask wearing yet. It's just something that the Attorney General complains about a lot.
Any other questions?
All right. Either in the reactions or by hand, let's give Joshua a round of applause for this very informative and sometimes scary presentation. But thank
Yeah,
you, Joshua.
sorry about the scary, but we're great shooters here. Yeah.
No.
Well, so
the reality is we're scared anyway. So,
yeah.
but your information is very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So we are live next month at the Ohio Inn for our summer fundraiser. And we don't have a venue yet for July, but in July, we do have the date, which let me see what it is. July 17th, it's a Thursday. We have Secretary of State candidate Brian Hambly is going to be with us, and this is going to be at a live venue. And if you have not heard of him or seen him, he is a super duper dynamic speaker who will be very informative and very entertaining. So that's what's upcoming. And as I said, please look for our endorsement vote emails third week in June, shortly after the filing deadline. And thank you very much for coming tonight, and hope to see you all live next month.
Thank you all so much. It was my pleasure.